So welcome everyone to Cadcorp's webinar today, getting started with Cloud GIS. You've all joined in listen-only mode, which means you are muted for the moment. And this webinar is designed to help you get started with Cloud GIS, and we'll be covering the basics behind cloud migration. Following the webinar, if you require more detail, we'd be very happy to arrange a one-on-one meeting on Teams or in person to answer any questions which you have. Having a look at the attendee list, it seems we have lots of attendees at the webinar today, which is really great to see. And it's not really that surprising, given the trend of many organizations at the moment are moving towards a cloud environment. Just a few admin points before we begin. The webinar is being recorded and we will send out the recording following the webinar. So please feel free to share with colleagues. The question panel is open, so please do submit any questions you have throughout the webinar. The second half of the session, of the webinar session today, we will be doing a Q&A with myself and Gary. And finally, please complete the exit survey to improve the webinars that we continue to run. This is really useful for us just to make our webinars more targeted towards our audience. And this will be emailed to you following the webinar. GoToWebinar has had a number of changes since we last run a webinar. For best viewing, I would recommend selecting active cameras in your top middle of the screen, and then select camera position as left. And then you can use the zoom toggle on the right-hand side to zoom into the presentation. There's also circle in red there that the question panel. As I mentioned, we're doing Q&A for the second half of the session, so please do drop in any questions which you have. Great, so that's the admin over. Before we get going, it'd be good to introduce ourselves. So my name is Will Stephen. I'm an account manager at Cadcorp. I work with local authorities in the north of the UK, many of which I can see are attending the session today. Gary, if you can introduce yourself.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Well, my name's Gary Randall. I'm the sales director at Cadcorp and also the account manager for many of our emergency services customers who I know have joined this webinar today. So yeah, welcome everybody this morning, and I'll be back later on to sort of help out in the Q&A session. Back to you, Will.
Great, thank you, Gary. And we're both going to switch our cameras off just so the presentation is a little bit larger on your screen there. Great. So the agenda today, we're going to start off a little bit about Cadcorp, as there are some new attendees who may not be as familiar with our products and services. Then we will discuss what is Cloud GIS, reasons why to migrate, along with some of our customer examples, and when to consider migrating to the cloud. As I mentioned, the second half of the session will be a Q&A session with myself and Gary. So please do drop in any questions you have so we can answer those at the end. So Cadcorp provide GIS software, data, and services. You can see here the range of sectors we work with, and looking at the attendees of the webinar today, it seems we have a good mix across the different sectors. We work closely with our customers in these sectors to develop our products. This is the Cadcorp Spatial Information System on the left here. So it's our range of products and services. Cadcorp software can be hosted in the cloud or installed locally. Today we're going to be focusing on the cloud services, but if you'd like to hear more about any of our products, please do not hesitate to contact your account manager. Some of our key strengths are also listed on the right-hand side, including we support over 300 data formats, including Ordnance Survey. So just to make this as interactive as possible, I thought it'd be good to get some feedback from the attendees today. So we've got a couple of polls, which would be great if you could answer. So the first one is, does your organization use software and/or services from the cloud? Hopefully that you should be able to see that poll. Great. I'll give you a few seconds just to answer that. Okay, so I will end that poll. So as you can see, 75% of the attendees today already use cloud software or services. Yeah, which is pretty expected. That is a general trend at the moment. Most people are moving towards cloud services. I've got another question as well, more towards the GIS side. So is your organization considering migrating its GIS and or web mapping to the cloud in the next 12 months? I'll give you a second to answer those questions. Got lots of votes coming in, which is good. Great, so I'll share those results there. So 65% are yes, 30% are unsure, and only 4% no, which is probably to be expected again, as you are obviously attending this webinar today. It's a pretty good start. If you're moving towards Cloud GIS or beginning your journey towards GIS hosted in the cloud, as we'll be going over the basics behind cloud migration and giving an introduction to that. So you're in the right place, which is good news. Okay, so some background behind what is Cloud GIS. So it's the use of cloud computing technologies to store and manage your GIS. There are three main components of your GIS which can be cloud hosted. The first is the software, the second is the mapping data, and the third is the business data. I'm going to be going into more detail with each of these three components. The first is the software. So this can be your desktop, your web mapping, in either the intranet or the internet, and it can be fairly flexible. It doesn't require a complete migration. Some of our customers only have their web map in the cloud, and they remain with their desktop on site. For customers who are familiar with our product, you'll see there is no change to the software itself. For the users, as you can see here, it's obviously in a remote desktop web client, and yeah, you've got cloud in brackets at the top, but other than that, it's the same familiar product that you should be used to. The second part is the base mapping data. This is typically from the Ordnance Survey. The PSGA members, Ordnance Survey, have cloud mapping services, but it's not just Ordnance Survey datasets used for base mapping. Other datasets that are used include historic mapping, satellite imagery, and aerial photography. Moving to the cloud is a good opportunity to review how you manage and access your Ordnance Survey products and other base mapping datasets. And gone are the days where your only choice was to locally load, translate base mapping data into the best format. There's now a host of web services and APIs available to use, whether software is in the cloud or if it's locally installed. Section 3 is all about your business data that you use in your GIS software. It might be that you're a smaller organization and you're happy using flat files like BVS or shape files. Or it might be that you're an organization that already holds most of the spatial data in a spatial database. Either way, Cadcorp can work with you to define a strategy to migrate the data into the cloud environment. Migrating GIS software to the cloud offers several benefits. Here I've listed 4 of the 8 main reasons for such a migration. There are also a number of example customers who have migrated to the Cadcorp cloud recently, and I'm going to touch on some of the benefits which they've found by migrating to the Cadcorp cloud. The first one is the scalability and flexibility in terms of storage and computing resource. Cloud can easily accommodate increasing data storage needs and provide the option to scale up or down resources based on demand. The National Forest, they're a current customer of ours, and they hold a vast amount of data on individual sites. So to assist in managing the data, Cadcorp installed and set up a secure cloud-hosted database which WebMap and Desktop can connect to. This allows the National Forest to centralize key data and increase the level of detail that can be recorded. And second, the accessibility and collaboration. Cadcorp Cloud GIS software allows authorized users to access geospatial data and tools from anywhere with an internet connection. This promotes collaboration among different departments, agencies, and different stakeholders. Staffordshire County Council, so they're a fairly new customer to Cadcorp, and they moved to the Cadcorp Cloud, and they're a much larger local authority, and they have found that moving their GIS to the cloud has led to more departments across the authority using GIS. Third, cost savings. So it eliminates the need for local hardware infrastructure, such as servers and storage devices, which can often be expensive to purchase, to maintain and upgrade. Stevenage Council and East Herts Council, they moved to the Cadcorp cloud in order to save costs. Fourth is data security. So the benefit from the providers, you can benefit from the provider's expertise and industry standards security practices. Cloud can include data encryption, access controls, regular backups, and disaster recovery. Lincolnshire Fire and Rescue Service, they chose to store their data in a secure cloud-hosted Azure SQL database, which is managed by Cadcorp. I've got the second half of the reasons here, so automatic updates and maintenance. We regularly release new upgrades for WebMap and our desktop products. When hosted in the cloud environment, we complete these upgrades automatically. This can free up IT staff's time and frees up resources. Baber and Mid Suffolk District Council, they were an existing customer of Cadcorp who moved to the Cadcorp cloud. When we released our new software upgrade earlier this year, they felt the benefit of moving to the cloud as our technical team are able to undertake the upgrade on their behalf. You can benefit from the ongoing technical support. As customers of Cadcorp, you have unlimited access to our support team with any issues which you may have. So Citizen Housing, they had no GIS manager to take ownership of their system. Moving to the cloud meant Cadcorp were able to update products, administer licenses, and complete Ordnance Survey map updates. They benefit from ongoing support from our technical team as well. It's the same familiar product, so it's an identical product to our on-premise software. Therefore, current customers users would not require any extra knowledge of the software or any extra training specifically for cloud would not be required. Durham and Darlington Fire and Rescue Service, they were an existing customer and they swiftly moved over to cloud without a large change for the users. The final point I was going to touch on is resilience and disaster recovery. So it provides a reliable backup and recovery solution. This minimizes downtime. So Barnet, the London Borough of Barnet, they moved to the Cadcorp cloud in 2021. And a key reason they migrated was for increased platform resilience, especially for home working and for emergency response. So these 8 advantages which I've touched on, they enable organizations to effectively manage their GIS workflows, streamline operations, and leverage geospatial data for informed decision making. We want to ensure that migrating to the cloud is a fairly simple process. You should expect a supplier to guide you through the process. Cadcorp customers have access to our technical team throughout the entire project. This begins from our cloud migration review meeting at the start of the project and continues after the project, as our customers have unlimited access to our support teams. For existing customers, if you have already purchased licenses, then this investment is preserved. It can be flexible to your organization's requirements. And finally, the supplier can manage the applications and services, which will minimize your organization's administration requirements. So the main message I'd emphasize when it comes to what to expect from a cloud migration is that migrating your GIS to the cloud should not be daunting or it should not be complicated. And it should take some strain off your IT teams as you're going to outsource management of applications and management of data. Most of our customers are considering cloud at the moment. From the analysis on the Crown Commercial Service is shown here. It does show an increase in spending. You can see the bottom right hand side of this image is the year-on-year spending on G Cloud services from 2012 to 2013 to this year, and you can see there is an increase in year-on-year spending. So most customers are thinking at the moment is a good time to migrate to the cloud. Other things to consider when it comes to when to migrate to the cloud is scalability requirements. So if your organization is experiencing growth or anticipates increased demand for geospatial services, then cloud migration provides the necessary scalability. Northamptonshire, they were a new unitary combined authority. and they moved to the Cadcorp cloud, and it meant they were then able to scale up for more users. Secondly, cost consideration. So if you'd like to assess the cost effectiveness of cloud migration compared to on-premise, then please feel free to contact your Cadcorp account manager. We'd be very happy to give an indicative quote for Cadcorp hosted in the cloud. This can be compared to current on-site infrastructure, including the hardware, maintenance, and personnel expense, to help you decide when might be best to migrate to the cloud. And third is collaboration needs, so real-time data sharing and remote access for geospatial workflows. Then cloud can enhance the productivity and the performance and speed. So might be a good time now to consider if your current infrastructure limits the data processing speed or your analysis capabilities with your GIS. The feedback we get from a number of our customers has been that they experience much better performance when they move to the cloud environment. And finally, for system upgrades and technology advancements, so Cadcorp released version 9.1 recently. So now is a good time for lots of our customers to consider cloud migration. As for existing customers of Cadcorp, Cadcorp will undertake those upgrades on your behalf, which is one of the reasons why we are seeing, after the release of 9.1, we are seeing a lot of customers look towards cloud migration. So if your organization are considering migrating GIS to the cloud, I thought it'd be really useful to share this slide from one of our conferences from a customer I did already touch on, Staffordshire County Council. They migrated to the Cadcorp cloud recently, and this is some of the lessons which they learned from their cloud migration. So it's good to learn from them some things that they found, especially from a larger county council. Some of the key things from our experience to ensure you have the readiness for cloud, some important factors to consider are, first of all, time. So in our experience, it's best to plan early for cloud. Secondly, it's important to consider what you would like to move to the cloud environment, and what software will be in the cloud, and where will your data be stored. And finally, what other software you have which is integrated with your GIS, and where will this be stored. Cadcorp are here to help you consider these factors in the form of a cloud migration review meeting, which is often how we start these projects, just considering some of these factors. Great, so that is the first half of our webinar done. I'm now going to invite Gary back to join for a Q&A session, just so we can answer some of the questions which you have sent to the question panel. So we're both going to turn our cameras on, hopefully. Hi, Gary.
Hi, Will.
Just before we get into those questions that have been asked, I briefly touched on some cloud migration projects which we have completed at Cadcorp and reasons why customers have migrated to the Cadcorp cloud. With your experience, do you have any recent customer examples of cloud migration which you could talk us through?
Yeah, thanks, Will. I think, like you say, you've covered lots of examples already, which is great. I suppose just taking a step back, what our sort of experience is now at Cadcorp is that we've got to the stage where almost all new projects that we get involved in are going straight to the cloud, which is good. I suppose Cadcorp still very much provides the option of on-premise if that's what's required, but in our experience, the demand certainly for new projects is to go straight to the cloud. I guess for some of the reasons that you've mentioned in terms of the sort of managed service and automatic upgrades and so on and so forth. We've also seen a trend again, which is sort of came up in some of your examples, is for existing customers also to migrate to the cloud. So we've recently had a major new release, and that's been an opportunity for many of our existing customers that have traditionally been on site to actually think about migrating some or all of their GIS into the cloud. You covered lots of examples, Will, which is great across all of our different sectors. So I think you had some local government and some housing and some emergency services examples. I suppose just one other that springs to mind when I was thinking about your presentation is it's just a really simple cloud migration that happened recently. So we had a UK fire service that attended our 9.1 launch event. They have SysDesktop on premise. They've had that for many years, and what they found, particularly during the pandemic and the sort of after the pandemic, they are doing a lot more remote working. So they don't necessarily have a dedicated desktop PC, and they wanted to be able to access this desktop from a browser, whether they're in the office or at home or out and about. So they used the 9.1 upgrade opportunity to move from SysDesktop Desktop on site to SysDesktop Desktop in the cloud. And yes, that's just one of the examples, just to throw into the mix, Will.
Cheers, Gary. One commonly asked question which I get asked when discussing moving Cloud GIS software is about the different routes to procurement. So what procurement options are available to the attendees of the webinar today?
Yeah, thanks, Will. So there's a few options available. I suppose at Cadcorp we also like to provide options. So customers will famously know that we support lots and lots of different data formats, and we also provide different procurement options as well. So I suppose the most common one, which is always been available since day one, is that customers can order software and services. Obviously, particularly we're talking about cloud services today. They can order them directly from Cadcorp. So we have sort of standard terms and conditions. They can send a purchase order, and we can provide software and services that they require. So that's sort of option one. You can order directly with our organisation. The second option, which has become a lot more popular in recent years, is using a framework contract. So often a framework is something that's organised by, in this country, UK central government, to make it easier for public sector to buy software and services. And obviously today we're talking about cloud. So the framework agreement that very much sort of fits in that bag is G Cloud, which I know, Will, you got to mention earlier on as well. So that's a really, really easy way of sort of purchasing cloud services. And I'm actually going to try and share. There's in GoToWebinar now the chat function, which I think will allow me to share a link. So let me just paste that and press send. So yes, at the top of the interface, you've got a chat option, which you can perhaps see a link I've shared, which is a link to the Cadcorp G Cloud services. So Cadcorp has 6 specific cloud services defined in G Cloud, which cover all aspects of a cloud infrastructure. So that includes a sort of hosted spatial database. It includes web mapping software, which I know you mentioned, Will. It includes desktop GIS, as well as sort of map and data services as well. So yeah, G Cloud has it all covered, but also you can order software and services directly from Cadcorp as well.
Great, thanks for that, Gary. Yeah, I think we've got a few questions which have been asked in the question panel.
Yeah, I can see those. I'll perhaps pick up on a few of them. So there's a question from Andy about could you hold data in PostGIS? So Andy, that's a big yes, a big thumbs up from Cadcorp. If you need more information about that, on that G Cloud link I sent, actually, I think the top service is a Cadcorp Spatial database service, which tells you a bit more detail about the options, which includes PostGIS, as well as the option of an Azure SQL database as well. So I know many of our public sector customers use SQL Server, so Azure SQL is an option to consider, but also PostGIS is a really popular option as well. So that's answers to Andy's question. There's a question about upgrading to 9.1. I know we've mentioned this new release a couple of times. So that's really straightforward as well. And if I just go to the Cadcorp website, I'm also going to test this sharing this chat function again. So if you are interested in upgrading your software to the latest Cadcorp version, there's a link there that you can follow, which talks you through the process of how to go about upgrading as well. Let's have a look at these other questions? So there's a question actually from Ben about sort of data uploads and downloads, and sort of more details about that. So certainly I'd just encourage you to have a look at those service definition documents within the G-Cloud definitions. So they include details of the amount of data that's available within the spatial database service by default, and how you can easily upgrade that as well if you need more data. So that is another question. Let's just scroll down. There's more questions coming in, which is great. We've got one question about the Ordnance Survey NGD. So I don't know if everybody here might not be familiar with that acronym, but it stands for the National Geospatial Database, and it's a new option, a relatively new option for the Ordnance Survey, providing their hosted data. And the question is about, can we use that within the cloud-hosted services? And it's also a big thumbs up from Cadcorp. So that is another data source that you can use when you're for your sort of base mapping within Cloud GIS. Okay, let's just open up some more questions. Yeah, so a question about sort of GIS strategies for migrating to the cloud, and sort of, I think probably information. I think guys, David is asking for sort of information now to support a business case. So yeah, we've got loads of content that's very much relevant for that, and I would probably direct you guys to I'll share another link to the resources section on the Cadcorp website. So if I just again, I'll post this into the chat so everybody can see it, and press send. That's a link to the resources section on the Cadcorp website, and one of the filter options that's available on the right hand side is cloud hosting. So David, if you filter that, you'll get to see all the sort of resources related to cloud hosting, and certainly some of those resources are perfect for a sort of business case when you're trying to present the case for cloud migration. Okay, let's see what other questions we can find. It's great sometimes when we run these webinars, and we wanted today to have a sort of Q&A session to and make it just as informal as we can using this platform. But sometimes when we do this, there's not so many questions. Whereas today it's great. We've got lots of questions coming in. I think we've still got time for a few more. So there's a question actually about is there a hybrid option here for cloud migration? And again, I like these types of questions because the answer again is yes. So I suppose the G-Cloud link I sent shows all the options for migrating to the cloud. So spatial databases, data, web mapping, desktop software. That's for everything. But organisations can sort of pick and choose. So some customers may decide they want to keep, for example, their desktop GIS on premise, but migrate their web mapping to the cloud. So that's certainly an option, and you can sort of pick and choose in many ways the components that you migrate to the cloud. So there is certainly an option for hybrid cloud. And what we find is that many people might already be using a hybrid type cloud at the moment because they've got external web services which are already coming from the cloud. So yeah, that's definitely I think again another thumbs up from Cadcorp. Let's just have a look at some more questions. So there's a question from a local government customer. So today, I know Will said we've got some commercial customers, we've got local government, and we've got emergency services. But a question from a local government customer is about can you snap to master map when you're plotting polygons. So again, that's a yes. Cadcorp offer a sort of vector master map service, which is hosted in a database. So it's not a raster data. It's not like the web mapping services that you might use for background. It is a vector service, and what that allows is it allows you to then to snap onto the vectors. So if you are a government customer that needs to accurately capture data for planning or for other applications, then yes, you can snap within web mapping, and you can do that within the cloud. Okay, let's just see, opening some more questions. Again, actually, a similar question about editing geometry and attributes within the browser. So Will earlier mentioned the name of our web mapping application, which is called Cadcorp Sys Web Map, and that has an editing option which allows you to edit the geometry and attributes of data within the browser. And I think actually my colleague actually in the next webinar, which I don't have the date to hand, but we can perhaps share. I'll share by the end of this presentation. We're running a webinar about the next generation of web mapping, which Cadcorp launched this year, which has new editing functionality as well. So there's details on our website at the moment, but there's also a webinar that we're going to be running on that exact subject. So I think, Will, I think we've probably got to the end of most of those questions. If there are any more questions, then guys, please post them, and we'll try and answer them if we can. Have you got any more questions there, Will?
Yeah, I think that's most of them answered. Just one from me, looking to the future. So I showed a screenshot from G-Cloud, which shows investment in cloud software is it's been increasing year on year. So what do you think the future of Cloud GIS will look like?
Yeah, thanks, Will. I suppose just the starting point is that Cadcorp will still be I think Cadcorp will still be offering local options to install software, because some of our customers require that. So that's the first sort of the first point to make. But what we are expecting is that more and more customers will migrate to the cloud. To support that trend, Cadcorp's been investing in a new Azure hosting infrastructure using containerized versions of our software. And what that means for our end customers is that we can upgrade customers to the latest versions really, really quickly, which is sort of great, a great technology to use. It will make it far more straightforward. So a lot has changed within cloud GIS within the last few years. So Cadcorp's journey was, first of all, we started WebMap, and then about 2 years ago we also supported desktop GIS in the cloud as well. So I think that will very much continue, and we'll get to the stage where even more and more of our services will be migrated. More and more customers will be taking advantage of the of using the cloud, because I think the business case really stacks up, as hopefully you've seen today. And the guy that asked the question about the business case, if you look at that resource section, you'll be able to see more information that sort of supports that trend.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Gary. And I see Gwen has also put in that webinar that you mentioned on the 19th of September for next generation of web mapping. So that's 19th of September for that.
Excellent. Thanks.
For those that were asking about web map. Yeah, so thanks for those questions. I think we did get through most of them. As Gary said, I'm sure your account manager will be in touch to answer any questions that you have following this webinar. Great. I thought I'd finish off with just some key takeaways from the webinar today. So in summary, there are many benefits of cloud migration. Cloud migration should be a simple process designed to ease pressure on what can be limited IT resources. Cadcorp can guide you based on our experience, We can help you decide on a best fit cloud migration model for your organization. The next step, if you are considering cloud migration, would be to book in a cloud migration review meeting, which I previously mentioned. This will be with your account manager and someone from our technical team. It's free of charge and carries no obligation to continue with cloud. It just allows our technical team to recommend the best way forward with that cloud migration. Great, thank you. So feel free to contact us at the contact details on screen. I'd just like to say thank you for attending the webinar today, and thank you, Gary, for answering a number of those questions, and thanks for asking those questions.